here at Reid Bakery in Trentham, and Alan, the baker, who's been here 6 years? 7 years?
Yep.
Is about to explain to you how he makes his sourdough bread, and also explain why, I guess, it actually steps around gluten intolerances and some of the problems that people have with bread, and they often put it down to having a gluten intolerance. But over to you, Alan.
Okay. So with real bread, and what we mean by real bread is bread made simply from flour, salt and water. Sorry,
what you talk to me.
I can talk to you, good.
Yep.
So bread made simply from flour, salt and water.
Yep.
No baker's yeast.
Yeah.
No dough improvers. No added gluten, which a lot of breads actually add gluten to it.
And why do they do that?
To get a bigger rise out of it. So to make it sort of fluffier, basically, but it's completely unnecessary. No preservatives, no added vitamin C, nothing like that. So real bread is just flour, salt and water, and it's leavened or risen with wild culture. And what we mean by wild culture is one that simply harnesses the microbes that live naturally in the local environment, and they're things like wild yeast and lactose bacteria. And that's what we have in our sourdough culture. Now the difference is that with a proper sourdough or wild culture bread, the leavening process or the fermentation process happens over many hours, generally 6 to 8 hours in the actual dough. And because of the long fermentation, a couple of things happen. First of all, you get a much better breakdown of the gluten, so much more thorough breakdown of the gluten. So in a typical...
The enzymes break it down before it enters the system, where your enzymes have to struggle to break it down.
Yeah, so gluten's a long protein molecule, and what happens is they literally chop it up into smaller pieces that you can easily digest. So that's what happens in the sourdough because of the length of the process of the fermentation. And so you're left with readily digestible byproducts rather than the gluten itself. And in a proper sourdough loaf, usually only about 10% of the original gluten actually remains in the final loaf. As well as that, these byproducts are actually quite healthy. They include things like polyphenols, which are like an anti-carcinogenic type of compound, and so quite healthy. And obviously our culture has developed eating these breads. Western cultures and Eastern cultures too have developed sourdough breads, like real sourdough breads, for at least 5,000 years, if not 8,000 years. And in fact, here, they've discovered grindstones, I think in Queensland, where local Aborigines were grinding grain to make bread 30,000 years ago. So in some cultures it's been around much longer. And the whole point of fermentation is that it breaks down what is otherwise not a very digestible product into something that is digestible. And so if you've grown up in a culture that has this tradition of real bread, properly fermented over a long period of time, it will be easily, it'll be easy to digest, and it'll be quite healthy.
Can I ask a question? If I live in town and I don't live out in Trentham near a bakery where we've got one of these big old
Scotch ovens,
what can I do? Like, you can go and get a sourdough, but often, as you say, they're using baker's yeast. They're not actually using a real, genuine yeast.
Yes, that's a very good question. Look, first of all, what we'd love is their best standard. The industry needs to actually agree on a standard definition of a sourdough. Our definition is the one that we think should be the case, which is no baker's yeast first and foremost, and none of that other stuff that I was talking about, dough improvers, added gluten, preservatives, vitamin C, fluffer, all those sort of things should not be in there. It simply should be flour, salt and water leavened with a wild culture. That should be the definition of sourdough. Once you have that definition, it can be enforced by the ACCC, and they can take anyone to court if they need to for not using the term correctly. And so it really frustrates us when we see all these pretend bakers out there making sour faux, is what we call it, not real sourdough.
Sour faux, okay. And in your experience, when you eat with this properly leavened sourdough, do you find that it's a little bit like the raw food or unhomogenised milk argument? People who have lactose intolerance often find that, firstly, they eat the version, it often contains the right enzymes to break down a lot of the lactose. Then when you move to raw milk, people actually find their digestion problems completely disappear. Do you see that with your sourdough?
Absolutely. Look, we've had many people here over the years who come saying that they're gluten intolerant, and we say, well, please give our bread a try.
Yeah.
Start obviously with a small amount,
yeah.
wait 24 hours, see what happens, and invariably they come back and say, yep, I can eat the bread.
Fine. Yeah.
It's fine.
And if you're saying, what percentage did you say of the gluten is broken down?
About 90%. So about 10% of the gluten remains.
Which is, it's often a matter of degree, isn't it, with gluten intolerances,
yeah.
as opposed to
full-blown celiac.
celiacs.
Yeah, obviously celiacs still can't eat sourdough, but most other people can have no health effects there.
You taught me a lot, Alan. Thank you. Thank you. We've got the dishwashing in the background as a soundtrack.
Yeah.